G'day guys, how's it going? Well, if you haven't noticed, I've sold the Troopy and I've bought myself a new car. I bought a 2002 Toyota Hilux turbo diesel, and it didn't come with a snorkel, so I've just bought myself a snorkel just off eBay, and I'll make a quick little video of how to install a snorkel on your vehicle. Okay, and these are all the things you're going to need to install your snorkel. We've got some Allen keys. They're just to put the screws into the back of the snorkel. We've got all the mounting hardware that came with the snorkel itself. We've got a pop rivet gun. That's just going to put the pop rivets into the pillar to hold the top half of the snorkel. Just got some ratchets and screwdrivers, a marking pen. You're going to need that to mark out your holes to drill on your guard. We've got the snorkel itself. I just bought that off eBay. I think it was only $70 or so. We've got a drill, and we're just using a step drill so we can make the holes as big as we want. We've got some masking tape just to mask onto the guard the stencil. We've got some thread lock just to keep all the nuts nice and tight. We've got sockets and spanners, and we've got a hacksaw too. We might have to modify just the standard intake, so we might just have to cut some of the original intake off. And there's the stencil, so we'll mask that up to the guard and we'll start drilling some holes. Okay, so this is the template that comes with your snorkel. Obviously you've got the intake hole there and all the mounting holes there. So what you want to do is you want to line that up, this edge, with your the edge of the guard, and then along the top there you're going to line that up along the top edge of the guard, and you're just going to masking tape that on into position so you can mark out all your holes. Okay, so we've masked up the guard using the stencil that it came with, and I'm using a step drill. It is a bit daunting to drill the first couple of holes, but after you've done a couple of snorkels, you don't sort of think about it too much. So we'll start cutting out these holes. You can mark them out with a texter, then take the stencil off and then cut them, but I just masking tape the stencil on and leave it there, and then I just keep it there, and I'll drill these holes, and then we'll try and test fit up the snorkel. Okay, now for the large hole, you can buy a hole saw, but this is an elongated hole, so it's going to be really hard to cut with the hole saw. So we're going to drill just the corners out with a 1/8 drill bit, and then the flat straight bits we'll just use the angle grinder, or you can use an air saw or a hacksaw or a little cutting disc, but because it's an elongated hole, it does make it a bit hard trying to cut two holes with a hole saw. So we'll just make that as best as we can, then we'll tidy it up with the angle grinder with a flap disc on it, and then we'll test fit the snorkel. Okay, now we want to test fit our snorkel. We've trimmed up the hole, so we've got the studs, which there's 5 of them that go into the back of the snorkel, and they've just got a little Allen head. And what we're going to do is we're going to put some Loctite in the hole, some Loctite, and we're going to put that in the hole to make sure that over time that these won't, with vibration, they won't rattle loose. So we'll just put a little bit of Loctite in each hole. And it's just a matter of keeping the Allen head to the top. Okay, now we've cut the holes. There was only one hole that was just a little bit out, so we just had to elongate it a bit, which doesn't really matter because it's all hidden behind the snorkel. So what we're going to do now is just give it a test fit. So that all fits in quite snugly now. So what we've got to do now is you just remove the snorkel, and because you've cut all the holes and you've stripped it back to bare metal now, you'll need to just put a bit of paint around the bare metal now, just to prevent any rusting. All I do is just get either just a sponge or a little artist paintbrush and just give it a spray onto the sponge and just dab it around onto the bare metal, just to prevent any rusting after you put the snorkel back on. Okay, now the next job you want to tackle is removing the inner guard liner. Usually it's either a couple of bolts or a couple of plastic clips, so you can either use a screwdriver or you can actually buy a specific tool remover. So once you've taken the clips out of there, you either want to completely remove it to make it easy, or just remove a couple just so you can pull it down so it's out of the way, so you can do the screws up from behind. And you'll have to remove this is the inner vent that came in the car, which ran originally just backwards inside the guard. So this will just be thrown out because that won't be used. But the other piece, which hooks up to the original airbox, and this is the bit that goes inside the guard. I think we're going to have to modify this, so we're just going to cut it down there just with a hacksaw, so when the snorkel goes in and the new bit of rubber boot goes through, that'll connect to here, and then we'll just finish them off, all the joins, with just a bit of black sealant, just to double check and make sure everything's watertight. Okay, now the next job is probably one of the most daunting jobs of them all, and that's mounting the snorkel to your pillar. So all you do is you roughly fit the bracket onto the snorkel, put the snorkel onto the car so you know exactly where it's going to fit, and all you do is you line it up. I just line it up with the windscreen rubber, and you just grab yourself a texter and you just want to mark out those holes. Now we've got to drill them out, and the bracket itself is held on by pop rivets. So once the holes are drilled, we'll put a bit of paint on the holes, and then we'll pop rivet that on, and then we should be just about ready to bolt the snorkel on. Okay, now I've drilled the holes into the pillar for the bracket, and what I've done is I've just put a dab of sealant around the holes, so when it clamps down on the pop rivets, it gets a better seal, and any little gaps will be taken up by the sealant to prevent any leaking into your pillar. So we'll pop rivet this on, and then we'll start fitting the snorkel up. Okay, now we've got to the point where we're going to start fitting up the snorkel. So what we'll do is we'll just sit the Snorkel where it is, and then we're going to work out the plumbing into the original airbox. And once we've got all that sorted, we'll plumb it all up, and then we'll tighten all the bolts, and we'll just put a bit of Loctite on all the nuts and bolts. We probably won't do it in here because it comes with nylock nuts, but up in the head of the Snorkel we'll put some Loctite on that. Just with a bit of vibration they might come out. So once the plumbing's done, we'll tighten it all up, put the inner guard up, and then it'll be all done. Okay, now the only modification that I had to do to the standard intake was this was the part that came off the airbox, and this is where it mounted up into the guard, and this right angle bit came from there, which went backwards up the guard. So we just had to cut that off square, so then the new intake can clamp onto that section, and then these original bolts will just go back into the guard and it'll be all done. So we'll bolt all that up, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's all done. Okay, so we've finished the Snorkel up. I'll just put you in the engine bay. That's the original mounting, and that's where I cut it, and that goes into the guard, and then it runs up under the guard into the intake, up, and there's where it mounts to the pillar and the head. So that's all done. So we'll take it for a test drive, and I've just got a couple of clips that have to be replaced that were broken up in the inner guard, and that's about it. Okay, thanks for watching. If you've got any questions on anything you saw in the video, just leave them in the comments below, and yeah, thanks for watching.